Good day, everyone. Future nurses. Today's discussion is focused on the concept of psychosexual stages of development. We will determine how every stages may or may have affected the personality of an individual. So I want you to take note of the important stages and I want you to enjoy while learning. So I'd like to introduce to you a very notable and important figure who took time in studying the personality of every individual. He actually introduced the psychosexual stages of development. He is Sigmund Freud. So according to him, personality is mostly established by the age of 5, and that our early experiences play a large role in personality development, and it may continue to influence our behavior later in life. Personality also develops through a series of childhood stages, and in every stages, the pleasure-seeking energy of the id become focused on certain erogenous area. An erogenous area is characterized as an area that the body is particularly sensitive to stimulation. He referred that this erogenous area are the psychosexual energy or libido or the sex drive. And he described this as the driving force behind every behavior. Particularly, Sigmund Freud described that we have an innate tendency to seek pleasure, especially through physical stimulation and through stimulation of these parts or zone of the body that are sensitive to touch. And these are the erogenous zones of our body: the mouth, the anal, and the genitals. Freud identified these 5 psychosexual stages, which are the oral, the anal, the phallic, the latent, and the genital stage. And to help you remember these stages, I want you to remember your grandparents. Your grandparents are old-aged people who love their grandchildren. Each stage of development is marked by conflict that can help build growth or suppress development depending on how they are going to complete and resolve these issues. Now, if these psychosexual stages are completed successfully, a healthy personality is the result. If experiences are traumatic at certain stages and issues are not resolved at the appropriate stages, fixation can occur. According to Sigmund Freud, a fixation is a persistent focus on an earlier psychosexual stage. If the conflict will not be resolved, then the individual will remain stuck in this stage. And these are some instances where the child develops fixation. So if the child needs at one of the psychosexual stages were either unsatisfied or oversatisfied, this means that the child would show continued attachment to an old stage, and this would result into problematic behavior patterns. The oral stage. The oral stage begins from birth to 18 months. And in this stage, the infant obtains sensual pleasure through his mouth. The erogenous zone is the center of libido, is the mouth. The mouth is particularly vital for eating, and the infant derives pleasure from oral stimulation through gratifying activities such as tasting and sucking. We also have to remember that at this point, the infant is entirely dependent upon his or her mother or probably their caretakers. So the infant develops a sense of trust and comfort through satisfying these oral needs. A conflict may arise if at this stage a child is being weaned off of the mother's breast. So it is helpful to continue feeding and maintaining contact with the mother and allowing age-appropriate object to be mouthed, like pacifiers, or probably a relief of teething pain by biting. So their primary task is to gratify oral needs. Now, if these oral needs are not satisfied, there will be signs of fixation that can be seen as they grow old, and most of this behavior are observed among adults to be having personalities such as passive, or they are gullible, dependent, and they may also present orally focused habits such as drinking alcohols, or they may become alcoholics. They indulge themselves to smoking or probably overeating. They may also have pessimistic attitude, and most of the time we see this adults who are orally fixated to be always biting their nails. The anal stage. The anal stage is from period of 18 to 36 months. And at this age, the region around the anus became highly sensitive to the stimulation of holding on and letting go. So the erogenous zone is the anal region, which is responsible for expulsion and retention of feces. So this is the primary focus of the libido, the anal region. The primary conflict is toilet training. Primary conflict at this stage is toilet training, and the child has to learn to control their bodily needs, and developing this control may lead to a sense of accomplishment and independence. According to Sigmund Freud, success at this stage is dependent upon the way in which parents approach toilet training. Parents who utilizes praise and rewards for using the toilet at the appropriate time encourage positive outcomes and help children feel capable and productive. So the task that must be completed is voluntary sphincter control. Freud believed that positive experience during the toilet training stage serve as a basis for the people to become competent, productive, and creative adults. However, not all parents provide the support and encouragement that children need during this stage. Some parents actually punish, some ridicule, and there are some who actually shame a child for being so messy or for accidentally pooping. So, according to Freud, inappropriate parental responses can result in a negative outcome that results to fixation. So if parents are too strict, anal retentive personality develops, in which the individual is stingy, they may become firm, very stiff, orderly, rigid, and they may become obsessive. And if parents, on the contrary, is too lenient, Freud suggested that it may result to anal expulsive personality, where individual has messy, disorganized, wasteful, or presenting destructive behavior or personality. The Palik stage or the Oedipal stage, this is a period of 3 to 5 years. In this stage, the erogenous zone is the genitals. The focus of libidos where pleasure is found is in the genitals. Particularly in this stage, genitals are not used for sexual intercourse, but rather these children just love to touch their private parts and they find it pleasurable. And Freud referred this as masturbation. So at this time, they become aware of their sexual organs. That's why boys realize that they have penis and girls find out that they have a vagina. And the child grow more interested in their genitals. And at this age, children begin to discover the differences between males and females. At this stage, the love-hate relationship with the same-sex parents also develops. That's why the primary conflict is the Oedipus complex and the Electra complex. Some critical episodes during this time for development occur, but these episodes occur differently for boys, as we made mention that the conflict is the Oedipus complex among boys, where in girls or in female, the conflict is the Electra complex. So in here, Oedipus complex occurs in boy where they have desire for stimulation or masturbation of their own genitals. They also have sexual or sensual desire for their mother. So boys begin to view their fathers as a rival for their mother's affection. And basically, this truly originates from Greek mythology where Oedipus the king have killed his father to marry his mother. And so at this age, they associate Oedipus complex, which describe the feeling of boys wanting to possess their mother and the desire to replace their father. At this time, the child also fears that their father could read their minds because at this point, it's not yet clear to them that no one can read their minds. So because of that fear, he believes that he will be punished by his father for these feelings. So this fear is called by Freud as castration anxiety. And to overcome this conflict, the boy or boy starts to identify with his father. And identification with his father reduces anxiety. So as you may observe during this stage, boys behave like father. They take up the ideas of his father, particularly the ideas of right and wrong. And at this stage, boys dress or try to dress like their father. Opposite, among girls, they are presenting Electra complex. And as this occur in girls, they begin to be attracted towards their father. And it is also the time that they notice that they do not have sex organs like their father and like their brother. And they view that having a penis is a sign of being powerful and being in control. So they have this feeling that it was their mother who castrated their genitals. So that thinking makes her angry and they starts to devalue their mother. And to resolve this conflict, girls should identify with their mother. And when they start to identify with their mother, they would have the feeling of the conflict would be resolved, and by doing so, they would have a better opportunity to have a romantic relationship. So their task is, of course, to be able to identify with their parents of the same sex. Now, if they could not resolve the issue at this stage, usually they may present fixation on this stage. And what we could see among these adults as they grow old, they may become reckless, self-assured, and narcissistic. They may have the inability to love. They may have difficulties with sexual identity. The latency stage. This is from the period of 6 to 12 years old. And during this stage, the superego continues to develop while the id energies are suppressed. So as you can see, erogenous zone is not identified, since sexual drive lay dormant and they remain hidden. At this time, the children starts to go around school and become more concerned with peer relationship, hobbies, and other interests. That's why sexual energy are still present, but it is directed into other areas such as intellectual pursuit and social interaction. So there's no identified primary conflict. And child usually have few opposite sex friends. And at this time, children develop social skills, values, and relationship with peers, as well as with adults outside the family. So at this time, the child is expected to develop the ability to care about and to relate to others outside the home. And this is particularly important in the development of social and communication skills and self-confidence. And a child may be presenting a fixation if at this stage she do not have close friends and she has a feeling of a sense of inadequacy and inferiority. The genital stage from 12 years old and beyond. This is the final stage of psychosexual development. This stage begins during puberty but lasts through the rest of a person's life. The erogenous zone is the genitals, wherein the individual develop a strong sexual interest in the opposite sex, and the genital is most important in maintaining a satisfying relationship, and they become more interested in a heterosexual relationship. And then we have to take note that a person becomes more interested in dating and marriage, and the more libidinal energy that a child has at this stage, the greater his or her capacity to develop a normal relationship with the opposite sex. If the other stages had been completed successfully, the individual now should be well balanced, warm, and caring. So the goal at this stage is to establish balance between various life areas. So particularly, they should be able to develop a satisfying sexual and emotional relationship. They must now be independent from their parents. They must be able to make a plan and to have a plan of life goals. They must be able to develop a sense of personal identity. Now, if at this stage there are issues that remain unresolved and they were not able to satisfy the erogenous zone, signs of fixation may set in, particularly regarding the opposite sex. So fixation may include guilt about sexuality. They may have feeling of inadequacy, poor sexual relationship, and they may also have. And those are the stages of psychosexual development. So always remember your grandparents. Old aged people love their grandchildren. So for more lectures, stay tuned and there will be more interesting stories to catch up. May God bless you all.